When you say 20 years in business, has it all been with Tippie Toes and the dance studios?
It has, yeah. So
Okay.
it actually, my sister started Tippie Toes when she was a sophomore in college.
Okay.
So she started it basically because she and I wanted to go to the Notre Dame Oklahoma football game, and she
Okay.
got her waitressing job there. Like, if you were gone this weekend, you're going to get fired. She was like, well, we really want to go to this game, so we went to the game. She came back to no job. My parents were like, you've got a car payment, you're going to have to figure it out. And so my mom was like, why don't you just go into daycares and start offering dance classes? Because we danced all our life. You know, recreationally, we weren't ever competitive, but we loved it and it was a part of our life. So anyway, so she started going into daycares. And then her senior year, I was a freshman. And so we were both in Norman at the University of Oklahoma. And so I started going and teaching dance. I did the same thing, and we were doing, you know, and then I ended up moving, she moved, and we kept doing it wherever we went. So then I moved to Stillwater to go to Oklahoma State, and I started it there. She moved to Kansas City, started it there. So it was very natural, kind of just kept working. And then 10 years later, we started franchising, and here we are 21 years into business. And we've got 35 franchises and a master franchise in China. And you know, it's really fun. And now I went from spending my days teaching dance to kids, which was a blast, to getting to work with incredible franchise owners and women, helping them run their business.
Yeah. It's mostly women, I'm guessing, that own these franchises.
It is. A lot of them are husband and wife, you know, combos, but the women run the business, and they, you know, they have the support at home, but a lot of them, they're all female entrepreneurs.
So if you were to go all the way back to when, you know, you were, you know, in your, let's say, high school days, middle school days, were you always entrepreneurial? Were you the entrepreneurial sister?
Yes, I definitely, I mean, I would say actually all three of us probably were. I used to play, when I was a little girl, I didn't play family, I played businesswoman. So I would come home from school and I would put on a business suit and high heels. And I had a company called Architecture Alley in my living room, and I pretended to play office. Like, that was what I wanted to do. My dad went to work. I always wanted to go with him and like see the office and see what it was like. So I've always loved that. Even, you know, I mean, growing up, I was, you know, interested in anything I could do that could kind of be my own thing that I would try to figure out. In college, I started trying, like, I was doing Tippie Toes, and then I was like, if I could, you know, clean people's houses, I could just do that. Like, I could just, which I got fired immediately because I'm not made for that. But I was always trying to find I taught aerobics classes to my friends before I was certified. And then I was like, I'm going to get certified. I started teaching classes, you know, so I was always wanting to do my own thing, for sure. Always wanting to kind of create something. So it's definitely in my blood.
So you just bypassed the lemonade stands and all that, and you said, all right, we'll do something a little more challenging.
Yeah. The lemonade stands were there. Those were the early days. But yeah, I mean, it was always, it was just always there. It was always a drive for me. And I don't know, it's funny now when I think about it. I'm like, I definitely had some jobs where I was a waitress, I was a hostess at a restaurant, things like that. But it never occurred, those didn't occur to me. It always occurred to me more to be like, well, if I could teach, you know, these classes, I could set my own schedule and I could do this, and I have these ideas, you know. So it felt to me like I was, it just felt more natural to me than looking for a job, you know, that was already there.
So is it fair to say that you've never actually like had a real job and worked for somebody, you know, post college?
Definitely. Yeah. 1,000%. So I'm a registered dietitian. So I had to do an internship. And I did an internship, you know, towards the end of getting my master's. And so that felt like I was kind of had a job, you know, because I had to go to the hospital or go wherever to get those hours in. But that was it. I mean, and I always knew I was going to do Tippie Toes. So especially at that point, you know, Sarah had done it. She's a few years older than me, and she clearly was established, and it was clearly like she was very able to do it as a profession. And I knew I could do it because I was still doing that as I was doing school too. You know, I always had multiple jobs, never had one job. But yeah, I've never really had no.
Yeah. See, I mean, you know what I think is cool about that? I work with a lot of people that are thinking about starting a business. I mean, I work with many that already have and do very well, but there's this group that's like, hey, I'd love to start something. I want to start something. And they say, you know what? I don't know if I'm qualified. Like, I didn't go to school for business, or I never never worked like, you know, to understand like how a business actually works and operates. And I think it's cool. You're like, hey, I'm gonna jump in.
Yeah. And I think that's such an asset. Like, I think when someone's like, I don't know if I know everything, it's like, perfect. If you knew everything, then you would be doing what everybody else is doing. Yeah. So come to it wherever you are. I talk about how your path, whatever your path is, that's your power. Like, because that gives you your own perspective. Nobody else is going to have your perspective. So I always feel like when I talk to people that are like kind of thinking about, you know, starting, I just think, well, definitely start taking action. Definitely start moving towards it, and then let things happen. But another thing I think in that same vein is like, don't tell yourself no. There's going to be plenty of people that will tell you no, but don't let that be you. You know, you can't be the one saying no to you. When I went to OU, I walked on the women's basketball team, and I wasn't good enough. Like, I shouldn't have ever had a scholarship. I wasn't good enough, but I was the hard worker. I was the one that would, you know, always be there. They weren't going to worry about me getting in trouble. I would be a team player, all that stuff. And I really, really, really wanted it. I got there. They let me do some stuff in the summer with them. Like, I felt like, you know, they let me be involved in different things. And a couple months into practice, they cut all the other walk-ons, but they let me keep going. And, you know, it was great. But I was miserable, and I knew I wasn't ever going to be, you know, a real player. And I didn't know how to fit in that role. And I quit. And like the next week they had their first scrimmage. I go to it. They're playing Boomer Sooner. They're running out in their in their warm-ups. And I'm like sick. I am just like,
that could have been me.
Yeah, that could have been me. And that's all I had dreamed about, was running out to Boomer Sooner. You know, I remember sitting there and being like, you can't cry in public right now. Like, you can't do it. You got to suck it up. Like, you got to, it was very hard. And now obviously the perspective I have now is like, I told myself no. Now they could have, we can ask Sherry Cole, like maybe she was going to cut me the next day anyways. We'll never know. But I told myself no, because I was miserable. I mean, I was the hardest thing I'd ever done at that time in my life. And it was a challenge. Yeah. But I told myself no. And that year they went on to the national championship game.
Wow.
They lost in the finals. But I mean, that's something to live with, is to watch that season and be like, those were all my friends for a little bit. And I walked away from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a good lesson.
But it's like, hey, I walked away from this and I walked towards something else.
Totally. And you don't always know what you're walking towards, but I just feel like you just got to keep walking. You know, it's impossible to know what would have happened. And if you spend any time worrying about it, then you're just spending your time in a place that's not going to deliver anything good for you. You know, there's no sense. If I would have, you know, dwelled in that for too long, I'd still be stuck in it, you know, and I wouldn't have moved forward and figured out, you know, and from that, I ended up going to a school that felt more at home to me at Oklahoma State, where I ended up meeting my husband. You know, all the things then unfolded for me there, which probably wouldn't have happened, because if I would have run out one time, I don't know that I ever would have quit. I think I might have been hooked, and then my story would maybe be totally different. But I like my story now, so I'm happy with it.
Yeah, no, and you know, there's a lot of people too, they get sort of hooked into these different identities, like, hey, I'm a basketball player, and they hold themselves in that period of time. And for you, it's like, hey, you know what, I made a decision, I'm owning it, I'm out, and now I'm going to move towards this. So it's hard to hit a moving target.
Yeah, you're right. And I will tell you, like, it certainly wasn't like, I'm good. Like, it took me some time to get to that place that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I was Megan, the basketball player. And then all of a sudden I was like, what am I? I'm like Megan, the college girl. Like, I don't know. I didn't know where to put myself. You know, so, but because I kept moving and kept just trying to follow things that I loved and leaning into the things I was good at, which I think always kind of gives you some confidence. If you're leaning into the things that you love, then you'll want to spend the hours on it. And then you've got a real good chance at getting good at it. You know,
so, what would you say though for you? Like, what are the things, like when you say, hey, I'm good at these things, what are those things? Because I find that those things could be very simple things. They could be complicated things, but you have to know what they are. So for you, it sounds like you know what they are.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I feel like working with people is really natural to me. I can connect with people, and you know, I think my emotional intelligence is pretty good. Like, of course, there are moments that you know, I'm sure I go astray, but I can connect with people and work with people really well. I also feel like I like problem solving, and as an entrepreneur, really, as an entrepreneur, I'm like, you solve problems and you have to be good with people.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, if you can problem solve and you can work well with people, I mean, and of course there's actually probably some jobs where or some things as an entrepreneur, you maybe don't have to be great with people. But in my journey, I'm looking for experts. I'm looking for people that can help me get to the next level. We have franchise owners. We have, you know, there's people that there will always be along your path. So being able to connect with people in whatever way that means, whether that's just being someone that people want to work with, you know, that's important, you know. And then also I feel like being able to problem solve, that's all entrepreneurship is problem solving. Like, you start with this idea, and then there's just gonna be problems. And then it's how you navigate that and how you go. This pandemic's a perfect example. Like, this is one big problem for every entrepreneur. Like, what do we do now? And you either problem solve it or you die.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. No, it's true. No, I'm with you. I think I always say, if you're an entrepreneur, you're saying problem solver. I say firefighter. When you think you've calmed the forest, boom, another one lights up, and you're like, wait, can I get a rest here? And it's like, it doesn't work that way. And another thing I say is, you got to know the rules of the game in which you play. So many people say, hey, I want to run the business. I could do what she does or what he does, but it's like, do you want to? You may be able to, but can you do it long term?
Yeah.
Can you solve problems and put out fires for the next 20 years like you've had to do with your business?
Right. Totally. And I think if you don't love it, then you're either going to, one, have to find somebody that does, or it just isn't scalable because it doesn't ever stop. There's no point at which, you know, I think some people would look at us, Sarah and I, that we have this business for 21 years, and you think, oh, there's no issues. And it's like, no, there's issues every day. Like, there's always something, you know, that we're dealing with. And it could be anywhere in the spectrum of the business. And so it doesn't go away. And so if you don't have the appetite, and I think that's actually a great thing for someone to consider. Like, if you're thinking about wanting to have a business, how do you feel like you manage when things don't go well? If you feel like you can navigate that, you actually mentioned the phrase emotional tax, of like being able to stay here. That's really important as an entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur, this is the path you're given, but you've got to ride it like this.
Yeah.
You can't go up and down with all of it. You would be exhausted. And then, like, how big can it ever really get if you're exhausted by the little things in the beginning, you know? So, you know, I think when you mentioned emotional tax, I'm like, that's a great way to say the importance of being level when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I said that because, again, in coaching a lot of different people, they're always expecting like everything around them to sort of calm, and then they'll calm. When it's like, no, you have to calm, and then everything else will still be crazy, but you won't perceive it as such because you've sort of balanced yourself. And you see it with great entrepreneurs, you see it with great athletes. It's sort of a common theme, you know, but there's so many people out there, they get jammed up and they get paralyzed and they take on all that emotion. And a big term today is like burnout, right? How many entrepreneurs are running around burnt out and toasted? And it's because they get so emotionally charged.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, when you're trying to have everything around you calm, you're putting a huge burden on yourself. You can't control what's around you. You know, like all you can control is yourself. So if that's the case, then train yourself to manage the chaos in a way that you can sustain it long term. You know, because if you're trying to control everything around you, you're going to be exhausted really, really quickly.
Yeah. Is that like for you, you know, what are the things that sort of get you crazy? I believe this. I say every person, no matter how good you are, there's sort of these tripwires. There's these things that get you just a little bit tangled up. And I always like to ask for, like, you know, we're 100% real here. We're being real in this conversation. It's definitely never all sunshine and rainbows. Like, what would you say are those things that, like, for me, when I owned businesses like you, it was brick and mortar. It was the first of the month. I had payroll and I had rent. And it was like, oh boy, it's coming. And if I didn't have a good month.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I can think there are two things that pop off to me right off the bat. One is, I'm gonna tell you both now because I'll probably forget if I don't tell you both now, and I'll circle back to them. So one of them is being a mom and being a business owner at the same time.
Okay.
And then the second thing is when anybody, if I feel like there's disappointment within our franchise owners or like with the people that I'm close to that I work with, that really that is something that I really can't stand. Like it's a really hard thing. So the motherhood and running a business, I have blurred lines all day long. And I constantly listen to people that are like, I have this schedule or I do this or whatever. And it's, whenever I know I've got stuff to do, like my kids don't care. They're 3, 5, and 7. They don't care. They want me that, and so when I feel like there's a lot of both of those things needing my attention, which is a lot, it weighs on me. And so luckily I've got an incredibly supportive husband and, and supportive, plenty of people around me. But right now in the pandemic, especially, it's like, thank God for my husband who's allowed, he's helped and we've worked our schedule so he can work, I can work, we're working late, we're working early, we're making it work. But feeling like I need to give so much to both because they're obviously nothing's more important than my children and my family, but that's a challenge. And some days I feel like I crush it and I'm awesome at it. And other days I feel like I fall flat on my face. And those are the days that I really it weighs heavy on me.
Yeah. And those days when you feel like you're falling flat on your face, where's your headspace at? Are you giving too much to one thing and not enough to another? Or are you feeling guilty that you're spending time with one and not enough with the other?
It's usually that I'm trying to do too much with both at the same time. It's usually that I'm not giving each what they need and knowing that like right now, I need to be with my kids this morning. But if I'm trying to hang out with my kids and then have a phone call and then hang out with my kids and have a phone call all within like 2 hours, which happens plenty of times because I want to be there for our franchise owners if they need something, but back to my kids, like they don't care. Like my husband has a call that, you just, it's, I don't know. It's really a challenge, but it's also a joy and it's a privilege. And I know that. And so I try to keep perspective on that. And just in general, like I really don't I have pretty low anxiety. I try to really focus on what I can control. And so with that and with parenthood, I've just, and being an entrepreneur, I've just learned like, there's going to be Tuesday mornings that I'm not working because that's what is needed for my life. But I chose to be an entrepreneur so I could do both. So I better keep working my hardest to get it. And I have a feeling I'm never going to be like, crushed it, nailed it, got it. This is so easy. Doing both at the same time is no problem. Like, I don't know that I think it's something you're just always working towards figuring out.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. When you're sort of in that build mode and you're committed to your family, you're committed to the business, it's like those are your two loves. You're all in. There's always an element, I think, to any high performer that says, I'm never satisfied, right? I'm never satisfied. Like I could always be a better mother. I could be a better wife. I could be a better business owner. I could do more for these franchisees. And that's sort of what keeps you going. But I think it goes back to, again, how much like emotion are you putting to that? Or can you approach that from a more neutral position and say, hey, I'm always just trying to be the best I can be.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like on my good days, that's what I'm like, you know what? I did my best. And I would say I think that's a really valid point. And, I think you just have to know there's some things that there's no finish line. You just keep doing your best and managing it as you can.
And I would think one thing that keeps this whole engine going is that you have fun.
Absolutely. At both. I love both. I love all of it. And that also is why I don't mind after bedtime. You'll a lot of times find me on the couch with my laptop there from 9 to 11, as we used to be watching baseball, but now we're, whatever we're watching now, Korean baseball, I guess. But because I love it, I'll put the hours in. But for me, I'm like, I would rather work because I love it. And I think that goes back to entrepreneurship. Like when you really love what you do, that's the whole thing of like, when you really love what you do, you never work a day in your life. That's what they're talking about. It's like, Oh no, I work all the time, but I love it and I wouldn't change it. I would rather do that than like knit something or like, make a cake or, do like, that's my love. It's my passion.
Yeah.
So I don't
You're
mind.
making a business.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Right. That's what I love.
Some people are mixing Betty Crocker. You're trying to find that right mix of people and everything else to make the magic happen.
Find those solutions. Yep.
Yeah. I find that, I like to talk about this a lot with people that are sort of just doing it, live case studies. There's a lot of talk about this work-life balance. And yours sounds like you're saying, listen, I sort of have that some days. I sort of don't have it other days, and it sort of is what it is.
Yep.
I do my best.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny because my sis Sarah, who I run Tippie Toes with, she her kids are a little bit older, and I see that like there's different stages of life. So talk about a moving target. Like you figure it out when you have babies and you're thinking about feeding schedules and 4 naps a day, and then that shifts to toddler life, and then you're like they're running around, and then that shifts to I need to make sure I'm watching what they're looking at on the iPad or whatever. Like parenthood is ever changing. Your business is ever changing. So that's why I don't know that there isn't a finish line for that, because you're constantly back to problem solving. You're constantly trying to adapt to the current situation. And none of it stops. None of it's static. It all just keeps evolving. So you have to keep evolving and keep finding the new things that work for you. It used to be I was working during nap times, and then that shifted. And then I was like, oh, I'm working at school days. And then when everybody was at preschool or school, I was like, I have 5 hours a day uninterrupted.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like I can do so much. Yeah, it was like a decade. So, so that's exactly it. I mean, I think some days I'll be like, this is what I would recommend. And I always share what I do, and how I do it, but like, that doesn't work for everybody, know?
No, it's like baseball players. Every player has a unique routine. Yeah. They're all professionals, but they each have a unique way in which they get to the field. And it sounds like even for you, the one thing it sounds like you don't resist those shifts. You're like, hey, business is dynamic, life's dynamic, I'm dynamic, I shift. As things change, I change with it.
Yes.
As opposed to like the rigidity that some people have. This is my routine and I have to stick with it.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say that person has a path, but that path needs to fit their lifestyle, and I mean, for me, that would never work. I couldn't do that, but there's a place for that. And there's a place that works. Would not be in my life.
Yeah. So you and your sister are in business together, which is, it's a unique dynamic anyway.
Yes.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. There's probably uber transparency. Sometimes there's but it's also cool that you have somebody, number one, you can trust on your team. It goes both ways. And it's also nice that you have a partner in growing this thing.
1,000%. Both completely. Sarah and I have talked so many times about having each other, like for the hard times, it's great to have each other to hash it out. Like what's going on? Like usually we're trying to problem solve something together. And so it's great to have somebody there, that you can work through those things. But then it's also great, there's so many times things will happen that we're so excited about, but like nobody else cares. But for us, we're like, this is amazing. But it's nice to have somebody that like fully gets it, on the same level that you are. Because the next person, there's always a little bit of like, oh, good for you, that's great. But we're like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's like it's on steroids.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys would you say that there's skill sets that you have that she doesn't have and vice versa?
All day long, yes. Sarah is a dreamer and she's an idea girl, and she has great ideas. She's great with people. She's, she runs. Her motor is unbelievable. Like she just crushes it, runs towards ideas. She has a podcast. She's writing a book. She's running Tippie Toes. I mean, she's all in with everything she does. She goes hard. I love operations. I love trying to figure out how we can do it best. I like trying to be efficient with what we're doing. I want to make sure that the execution is right so it's scalable so we can keep going. So we have that, I have a podcast too that's actually going to be coming out this summer, which is exciting, but she, we approach things differently.
Yeah. Which is that's the blessing. right?
It
Because
is.
every successful person that I've spoken with or worked with that's in partnership, I always ask about the other partner, and
Mhm.
they have opposite skill sets. And here's how it works. Every partnership, right? One person is that dreamer, that vision, and the other person is like, I love details. You know, I love
Yeah.
spreadsheets. I love to know what's like,
Let's figure it out. Yeah.
yeah. And if you have two dreamers, the business doesn't go anywhere.
Right. Right.
So that's cool.
And if you have two planners, then it might not go anywhere because they're just going to plan and plan and plan, and they're not going to be like, let's go, you know? So I totally, and I've read, and you know, all the various books about the different, you know, there was a great book a while back
There's a
about,
book called Rocket Fuel. Did you ever read that? Where
no,
there's an operator and then there's an integrator. Like, excuse me, there's a visionary and then there's an
yeah,
operator.
yeah.
So you need the
It's,
big vision, and then you need the person that says, okay, here's how we're going to execute it.
let's do it. Let's put the steps together. Yeah. And it's really fun. And it's fun because also back to kind of what you're talking about with having a partner, the trust, you know, the book Speed of Trust, when you, and I think about that term all the time, like the speed of trust, because when you fully trust somebody, you're not questioning anything. You're like, I know the intention is good. I know their vision is on point. I know they want the same thing I do. So there doesn't have to be any of the like, well, you know, like when we talk about things, it's to get the best solution, but it's never to question motives or anything like that because it's so pure, and it allows us to move faster.
Yeah, that's awesome. And when you first got involved, how many studios were open?
So we it's kind of interesting. So when Sarah was in Norman, so when she was like sophomore, junior, senior year of college, she was going, we go into daycares and preschools. So we didn't have brick and mortar anything. We
Okay.
would go to the schools and do that. So she had enough, and you know, I don't even know the number was when by the time she graduated, she had enough people in Norman that she was like, what do I do with this money? What
Yeah.
do I, you know, like, because it was just her. She was teaching and she was charging tuition, and everyone was happy. And it was just so natural for her. And so, I mean, we started, you know, I went to Stillwater, and when I started it there, you know, there's nothing. And then you go and you have, you know, 100 kids in the first, you know, year or so. And then, but that's like your side hustle as a job, but that's great, you know? And then, so we started, you know, we started really slow, and when we moved to franchising, we had one franchise for 1 year. We spent a year planning, and then we spent a year with one franchise, our first franchise, because we were like, we knew what we knew there's a lot we didn't know. And
Yeah.
so it's been a year with her before we then, you know, opened it up and kind of and expanded from
And,
there.
and that first franchisee was purchasing the rights to open a brick and mortar facility. So by that time, you had already. No. Okay.
No, she was so we provide lesson plans and dances and all the content and the marketing and the brand.
Okay.
And so then we obviously help with the sales and things. So then we help kind of say, let's go do the sales, let's go here, let's go get into this school, this YMCA, you know, whatever. So that's what they are getting initially, which is also why, you know, our franchise, you know, you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy Tippie Toes. It's a lower entry cost because you don't have to worry about brick and mortar. These women work from their home, and now several of them over the years, it becomes very smart to get a studio at a certain point. But in the beginning, it's great because you don't have that overhead and that extra burden of brick and mortar. Over time, when you become established business and the go-to place in your town, which happens with pretty much all of our franchise owners, then a studio, it's like opens itself practically, you know, because you're like, we've got all these people all over and they want more. So here's a studio, and that's kind of how it's developed for us.
That's cool. So when somebody wants to first start up with you, they don't have to go sign a lease, and they don't have to take on the full obligation. They can grow into that.
Right. Really, just like Sarah and I did, you know, it's just how we started. It's like, you know, it can be you know, if it's somebody that wants to dance, it could be one person going in, selling to a bunch of schools, teaching dance classes. You know, we lived in Cincinnati for a little bit. I lived there for a couple of years, and I had one assistant that I hired like year 2. I had 200 kids, and I did it all pretty much on my own, you know, and it's so, but it could also be someone that wants a staff, but, you know, I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do it, which is what I love too. Our franchise owners kind of make it their own.
Yeah, that's great. You give them the flexibility. Now,
Yeah.
for you, where was the idea like to say, hey, we're going to franchise this? Because you know, a lot of people that never hits them there when they're doing that at that startup level, they're so caught up in the day to day, they're wearing 10 different hats. They can't even imagine like now I got to, you know, create a franchise and do all the FDA
Yeah.
franchise agreements and all that.
Mm-hmm. Well, this will sound, you'll be like, yep, that sounds right. It started out of failure. It started because Sarah and I wanted to have a children's television show. We wanted to be the next generation of Barney. And we were working with some people in LA and for a little bit and trying to kind of think, what would animation look like? And we went out there and met with them, and we were with a couple of people that we really trusted. And it was like, it blew up. It was not going to happen. It wasn't like traumatic, but it was just like, this is not going to fly. And one of the people we were with was our cousin, and the other person we were with was Reed Ryan, Nolan's son, and he's just a great businessman, and he's been a mentor for us. And he and our cousin were sitting there at the table. I still remember it, and they were like, "Why don't you guys franchise?" We were like, all right, okay. I don't know. What does that look like? And then all of a sudden you start thinking like, oh yeah, I mean, we've done this in different states. We've already franchised it ourselves. We have done this. And so then after that trip, I had just gotten married literally like 3 weeks before that trip, and maybe not even 3 weeks. And I went back to Cincinnati and I bought Franchising for Dummies. Franchise for Dummies. I still have it. It's like my favorite book because
I can see it. Yeah, there she is.
This is how it started. And so I opened the book. I mean, I started, so that was 2008 when we start kind of like, okay, what is it? What is an FDD? What are all these laws? God, there's a lot of laws around, you know, and you just start figuring that out. And then you start seeking out experts. And, you know, so we found somebody that had a lot of experience in consulting and doing franchise work. And he helped us kind of get to that next place. And that was it. That was how it started. So it started out of a place of failure.
Yeah, and I think what probably also helped you to have some of the money to create the franchise was that you didn't have the overhead of the brick and mortar.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
And you know, we had done it ourselves for 10 years. So the idea was, it was a little bit daunting to be like, I've got to write down everything we do. Like it was a big thing to bite off, you know, like, oh my gosh, like I can't even imagine, but the way you do it is you just start writing.
Writing a book, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You just take that first step, and you know, you can't think about the end, what the end is going to look like. If you start just, you know, I mean, you want to have some vision of where you're going to go, but you can't let that stop you from being like, that's too big, you know, because it's one step at a time.
Yeah. So what do you love most about franchising? And listen, I am like, I think it's the coolest thing in the world, franchising. I've always been fascinated with it. I just think it's really cool, but I want you to tell me about franchising.
Yeah. So I just love that. To me, it's so logical. Why reinvent the wheel when you don't have to? Yeah. And I also think Sarah and I knew we could only make this business as big as we could manage, you know, and we wanted, and we also had friends also always telling us, God, you're so lucky you get to work from home. You're so lucky you've got this flexible schedule. You're so lucky you don't have to take work off to get your hair cut or, you know, whatever. And so all these little things over the years kind of kept creeping into our, you know, we'd have dancing friends. It's like, I can't believe you found a way to have a living around dance. Like there's not a whole lot of ways to make a good living when you're talking about dance, unless you're like really good, you know? And so, for me, I love that to me, it makes so much sense. Like, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's work together. Let's give this opportunity to somebody else, and then let's see what they make of it. And then it's kind of the whole two heads are better than one idea, in my opinion, too. So, you know, we have this infrastructure that we've built out, and then we love seeing franchise owners bend and weave as they need to in their different areas. So it's funny. I now think so many things in my life. I think of franchising as far as like, well, let's not do this 30 times. Let's do it once really well and then duplicate that system. You know, I mean, to me, I'm just like, that should make sense. Like,
Yeah.
It just makes so much sense to me to do it that way. And, I will say our franchise is different than a lot, because we at one point had somebody say to us, what are you trying to like build a sorority? And we're like, we really do want our group to be cohesive and feel, close. And these aren't just like spots on a map where we don't care about the rest of the story. We care about the whole story. We care about these people. We care about their families, and everything we do is focused on them, and so it's much more of a family environment, which is what we wanted to create. So I love the ability to create this community. I love the logic that comes with repeating things that work. And I feel like it helps like shorten the gap, or, shorten the curve of the challenges and the hardship that can start with entrepreneurship. I feel like it gives such support to somebody that's interested, without feeling alone. You're not in business alone, but you have the autonomy to do what you need to do and to run your own business.
And a lot of the people that are, the ladies that are purchasing franchises from you, have they run businesses before, or are they just passionate about dance and the culture that you guys have created?
It's funny. It's such a mixed bag. We've had people that were teachers. We've had people that were medical sales. We've had people come out of college. A lot of it's now turned into our teachers that then work as a Tippie Toes teacher in college. And then they're like, I want to do that for my, job. And so we've gotten, it's a mixed bag. It's people, I would say it's mostly driven women who want flexibility in their life, want to build something, but don't want to do it alone. And that sounds like a cheesy commercial, but it's
no,
true.
Listen, I get it, because don't forget, I'm a coach. So I provide people the support and an ear and a shoulder, so they don't have to go through their career path and life alone. So I get it. And it's scary to be, you have your sister when you first started, you guys had each other, so you have that support. But for someone that says, hey, I love dance, I want to do this, I want to open a dance center, and you're coming in and saying, look, we have this done already, but in addition to the how-to, you also can partner with us, and we've already been through all this before. Whatever problems you face, we've probably in the past 10 years, we've already faced them, or 20 years,
Totally. And and we tell them that all the time. That's like, you're going in, like when it's your day one, you actually have 20 years of experience with your day one, because we'll give you everything we've got, and we are on the phone, we're available, we text and phone. And I mean, they're a part of my life. It's not, if a franchise owner calls me at 8:00 at night needing something, I'm talking to them. Like, I'm not, that's how we've decided to run the business. And it's people over everything, like Scott McGregor would say, and it's people first, and so it's been exciting to try to build that culture, now certainly, it's not like everything's always perfect and easy, but that's what we're shooting for. We're shooting for a really supportive community of people that are chasing big dreams and supporting each other.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So I want to ask you this question about, it has to do with goals, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to you setting goals, for Tippie Toes and the franchise and yourself, like how rigid are you in setting those goals? Or are you more of like of a high vision person? Like,
yeah, I would say that's a great question, because Sarah has always been a write her goals down kind of person, and I haven't, which is funny given our personalities. But I would say it feels like we always have projects. That's kind of how I see it in our life. We have these projects, which really are goals, that, we write our own music. So that's a huge factor for us, because we have everything in our classes is original to Tippie Toes, which nobody else does that anywhere, for our business. So we'll have these goals that we have set that we're always working towards. There's never a time that Sarah and I don't have goals set for corporate. We're never just like, maintain, just keep it up. We're always like, how are we going to do more? What are we going to do next? What's the next project? What's the next way we're going to bring value to our franchise owners and our families that join Tippie Toes? That's where our thoughts always are. So, I feel like I think of it more as projects, and we always have projects, and they're always, pretty much a deadline of, okay, we're going to have this album done so we can release it, for.
How about though, as it relates to like, like business growth in terms of, hey, we want to be at 50 franchises by this time, or we want to meet these revenue targets by this time?
Yeah. I mean, I don't focus on that, because I feel like we've had times where we've had, just because someone has money and wants in, that doesn't mean it's the right fit for how we operate our business.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I feel like putting for us in the way we want to grow this business, we might have 5 new franchises in 5 months, and then we might not have anybody for the next 7 months.
Yeah.
And it's just based on how that evolves. We don't have a sales team out there banging down doors trying to get people to buy franchises.
Yeah.
And so, obviously Sarah and I for certain have goals. And what's funny to me is we're talking about this, is I still feel like we're such a young company that we're like, I'm still like wanting to add value to what we have and to strengthen who we are. And that's really where I spend more of my time. I don't honestly spend time on trying to hit a certain number, or, we've talked about it in the past for sure. When we started, we actually had a consultant that really focused on that. But it started to become, in my opinion, arbitrary, and it defeated the purpose that I wanted, which was the right people in the right place at the right time. And that was more important to me than hitting the number.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, because I asked that as a semi-loaded question, and that, for me, every time I've written a goal, number one, I've never hit my goal on time.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I've hit it sooner. Sometimes it's been much later. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you're letting these numbers drive your decision making, you're going to make bad decisions. And it's like saying, hey, oh yeah, you have enough money, you want a franchise, buy in. And it's like that person's disruptive to the culture, doesn't fully believe in the mission. It's like, yeah, well, but we hit our goal. And there's people that do think like that, and it's dangerous.
It is. And I just feel like it's an unnecessary pressure. There's enough stuff out there to be pressured by that matters more than that, and for me, if we get 50 new franchises, but 30 of them fail, oh, that's not what I want. I want 5 new franchises that all survive, more than I want, 30 new with, I know the net gain, I might be up, but I don't, the tax, honestly, because of how we operate, because these aren't just spots on the map. These are families. These are people we care about. So if something doesn't work or it's not a good fit, it wears on me. It's not where I want to spend my time. It's not what I like. And so we do try to, just focus on getting the right people first and foremost.
I would also think too, pacing yourself is important. You don't want too many newborns, at the same time, or you're going to be up all night.
Yes, totally. And when we do have a new franchise, I mean, Sarah and I, we have a creative director who helps us a ton. And then our dad works part-time for Tippie Toes. He does all of our shipping out for all the sparkle ballet slippers and our Tippie doll and all the music.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is awesome. My parents have we've taken over their house, and anyways.
They love it. They love it.
They do though. They do. They're the greatest. They've been the biggest support from day one. But it's just, I feel like we aren't this huge corporation that's like, oh, send it to them, like we're doing the work. If someone buys a franchise, they're working, I'm helping them. I'm going to their city and I'm selling it with them. That's where we are right now. Now, I don't know what it looks like in 20 years. But that's how we've done it now. And it's been great, and we've loved it, and we're super connected. So you're right. 5 new franchise owners at once would be a lot. What's been amazing is we've had our current franchise owners buy a second, a third, a 4th franchise, because it's working for them. They know what they're doing. Yeah. And for us, we love it. And so we make every effort to, that's a good sign to us if they're wanting more. Yeah. You have somebody that's already, understands the system, is a proven success at the system, saying, hey, I want to expand. I want more. It's a great brand, which is cool. So before we started talking live, I said I was going to sort of bring this up. You did have the opportunity to go on the Shark Tank, and you were in the tank. Number one, I'd love to know the preparation for that. Like, first of all, how do you even decide, like, hey, let's give this a shot? And then when you get the approval, how do you decide to do it? Like, what's the preparation like prior to going in? Great question. So what happens is your brother-in-law just submits it and you don't know that that's happened. That's what for us. So Sarah's husband, who is equally a dreamer like she is, he submitted us the first season to be on it. And then we get an email like, I don't know, 6 months later. And I was like, you know, we'd like to talk to you about your application for Shark Tank. And Sarah and I were like, what are we talking? What is this? And he's like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I submitted you, whatever. So that's how it started. And the preparation was really interesting. Kind of, I guess, two sides of it is you're working like right off the bat, you start working with somebody, or not right off the bat, you go through like an interview process. You know, we're sending them videos, and this was in 2010, so it's been a minute. But you're sending them, you're getting interviewed, they're talking to you, you're talking to different people. You know, you kind of have to jump through the hoops, of course, which, you know, at that point we're like, this is so fun, how cool.
Yeah.
You know, and what we were pitching to them is that we wanted children's DVDs. We wanted to have our dance classes on DVD, and then that would be available to everyone, which is interesting because now with the pandemic, we just switched to virtual classes because no one can dance with their kids. And so now we've done that. It's kind of interesting 10 years later. So, but then, and then at that point, once you really are never told, like, you're in, this is how it was years ago. You're in, this is what's going to happen. Here's the date you're going to come. We knew like within a week before we were going to be in LA. Like, we didn't know. They were like, this is probably when you'll come, but you don't know. We didn't have our flight until the week that we were going. But I will tell you, we took the preparation very seriously because we studied, we prepared, because we watched season 1 and we're like, I don't want to look like that.
Yeah, exactly, right?
And the only way we felt like we could make sure it was like we prepared. We knew everything about the sharks. We knew everything about their families. We knew everything about every contestant that had been there before. We knew everything about our business. We spent hours, and it was a huge, task for us. It was another job for both of us to prepare. You know, you work with a producer that helps you kind of work through your pitch. It's your words, but they kind of help you be like, you know, kind of just, I mean, it's a television show.
Clean it up, yeah.
Yeah. And so it was, you know, for a while, I want to say it was like weekly calls or maybe every few weeks. You know, for us, I'm trying to remember, I think in September was when we started, like we submitted something and then we went to film at the end of October, at the end of October. That doesn't sound like it was that long. It felt like it was way longer than that.
But you were running a business too.
Yeah, exactly. We're running a business. And at that point we had 7 franchises. Now we've got 35, but at that time we had 7. And so then we get to LA, and we had to do like a casting call because we had little dancers. So we had to cast kids, which that was the worst thing and the greatest thing, because it was like, oh, this is so fun. But then we have to like tell a 5-year-old girl no, which was not how we normally spend our time doing. You know, that was not fun. But it was a fun experience. So we ended up in LA for like a week, and just kind of like, you're just sitting there waiting for them to be like, you got the call. So they don't guarantee you. I didn't know if we were going to get aired. I didn't know if we'd get in front of the sharks, and then you don't know if you're going to get aired. So it's a whole lot of unknown, but it's kind of like, do you want it or not? And so like they had all the leverage, as they should, you know? Yeah. And so, but we did our work. We prepared, and it was so fun. Having said that, you get in there and you walk down that hallway. And the first time you do one thing where you go, and I guess they test a light or something, but you walk down the hall, and the sharks were there, but they're kind of like just chilling. It's not like formal. And we luckily had these adorable 3 kids with us, which totally breaks the ice. It was like our super secret weapon that we had that we didn't know until then. But we get in there with them for the practice part, and they're like, oh, look at the kids. And we're like, oh, thank goodness. Like, you know,
they're nice. They're kind of nice people.
Yes, they're human. Okay, thank goodness. Anyways, then we come back and we film the real deal. And I tell you what, like, it was super fun. We kind of felt like we had to make sure that we didn't feel like chum in the water. So we were firm in our beliefs and what we wanted. But also, you know, your brain, it's really hard to think straight when it's such a weird setting. Like, where am I? So even just like doing math of what offer should we make, it's like, I don't even know, you know.
Yeah, you have this board of brilliant people sitting in front of you. You have lights, you have cameras. You're totally out of your environment, so right away you're in a semi-defensive posture. But you still have to, you know, be professional.
Yeah. And you want them to want you. Like on top of that, you're like, and there's like a whole lot of like darkness. You can't see what's like happening over here, but it's like all the producers in the video. I mean, there's all this stuff, you know, and it really was an out of body experience. But you know, we were excited. We believed in, it goes back to, we really believe in what we do. You know, we really believe that our dance classes bring joy to kids. We are uplifting and positive and encouraging. It's not at all competitive. Boys, girls, you know, and we just believe the power of what we do. And we know that we impact families, and we know that we bring joy to kids. And we know that kids that, you know, are shy come to our classes and they come out of their shell. And like, these are the big things that like, when you have that in you, a shark couldn't rattle us in that way, you know, because we believed in what we did so much. So
you have a bigger mission than just, you know, settling on a dollar amount for a percentage, you know, and equity sell. Yeah, I got it. No, that's pretty cool though. I mean, I would imagine, and I'm a diehard. I watch a lot of the show. Yeah. I would just imagine that it makes you better going there. The preparation before, the questions, you being on the stage, and then the flight home where you're like, wow, you know, what just happened, right? And some of the questions they get you to think a little bit deeper about your own business.
Absolutely. It was a wonderful lesson. The other thing that was really cool was meeting the other entrepreneurs, because you're there, they're like 2 weeks of filming. And so we were there. So that season 2, we knew half the people on that whole season because we had, you know, we met them, we were hanging out with them, and we're in the hotel together, and we're downstairs like, what's your business? So that was really cool because, you know, you just meet cool people with cool businesses that are great. And, but it was also a lesson, I'll tell you the truth, is a lot of people that were there love to talk about themselves and their business. And it's natural to do that. But it's also a great time to shut your mouth and listen, because people are telling their story, and you can learn so much when other people are talking. Yeah. And so, you know, that was a lesson for me that has stuck with me, that I think, you know, a lot of people met Sarah and I, and we got the sense that it was not giving us much, you know, like they're like, at that point, I don't know, I was in my 20s, Sarah was in her 30s. And I think people are like, oh, that's a dance company. That's you know, cute. Yeah. And kind of had us pinned as that. And that's fine, you know, and it doesn't bother me, but I did love being able to sit back, listen to everybody, and learn and think, I know how I want to present myself. I know how I want my business to be presented. And I know to never look at somebody and think, you know, anything other than let them tell you who they are. Don't assume you know anything.
I love that, because it's so easy to assume, right? It's like dance business. I've seen a million of them. I sent my daughter to one years ago and that. But it's like, well, there's a greater story here. There's a bigger story at play here. And there is something that we're doing that's greater than dance.
Yes, totally. And you know what? Dance is our vehicle. Yeah. But it's not everything. We are building children up through activity. We're showing kids that being active is fun. We're showing kids that you can work. It's fun to work towards something. Yeah. You know, they can't do a jazz box when they start, but they can do it by the end. And that's showing them the progress. It's dance is our vehicle to, you know, inspire and uplift and encourage children. And families really too. Like we, you know, there's always two sides of how I think of things, because I think of how we are impacting kids, but I also think about our franchise owners. And I want women to know, like, it's going to be hard. There's going to be really hard days. There's going to be things that don't go right, but you can do. And so I love that side of it too, where you're seeing how you can impact, you know, really two different types of communities. But for me, dance is awesome and I love it, but it's our vehicle to do a bigger thing. Yeah, no, that's cool. And I'm guessing too, beyond just empowering, you know, the young ladies and boys that join the class, now you're on the other side where you get to empower these other business owners. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And to see themselves differently than maybe they ever thought. Like, you know, did you know you were such a fierce businesswoman? Did you know, look what you've built, look at the lives you've impacted, look at the community that you've built around nothing. This didn't exist 5 years ago or whatever. And look at this. And I mean, the emails that come in from parents and stuff, it is fuel, like no other kind of fuel. No, it is unbelievable. And like, you know, my daughter never felt comfortable, here and she came to Tippie Toes, and I've seen a different side of her. I never thought she would do this, and now she's so confident. She had a really hard time at school and her friends weren't being kind to her, and Tippie Toes is her favorite day because she feels uplifted. I mean, that's it. You know, that's it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, it's that old like purpose-driven business, and the purpose continues to drive you.
Yeah,
which,
all day long.
Which is cool. So I call the show the Becoming a Champion show. I say that because we're always becoming champions. We never quite arrive. But I always end with this. What does the word champion mean to you personally?
Golly,
there's no wrong answer. So it could be anything.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, the minute you said champion, in my head I was thinking being a champion for other people. Like I think when I hear champion, I think, how am I serving people around me? How are the people around me feeling? And so it's funny, I don't think of it. So I guess I would consider myself a champion if the people around me feel like they're champions. That's cool. Whether that's people I work with, people that are my customers, my family, my kids who keep coming to the doors. But I think that's when you said champion, my first thought was like, I want the people around me to feel like they're champions. And I think that would make me feel like at the end of the day that I was a champion. Yeah,
no, that's cool. That's the best way. It's sort of that fuel you keep refueling, because you get to impact these people and they kick it back to you. And it sort of keeps that fire burning.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, when you look around the people that are around you, you know, that's what matters. And and I also think too, when you have people are willing, I'm always amazed, like you have a customer, you have somebody that came to you that wants your service. Like that's incredible. Like I think I'm still in awe of entrepreneurship and running a business, because you just think, what an honor to get to serve people. What an honor to get to share something that you love and care about with other people. I just think that's cool and an honor. And I think it's a really special thing about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's an opportunity that we have when we're entrepreneurs to continue to serve and you know, build something that can help people and just create these communities of people that have been touched by what we've created together. Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like that's just amazing. I think it's really cool. And I love to see people, you know, I've seen more people that I admire who then I see how much they lift other people up. And I think that is something, I see them as a champion because I'm like, they're a champion for so many people around them. Scott McGregor is a great example. Jesse Itzler is amazing at this. And I find it really inspiring. And so I think people's the answer, you know, that's really where the attention and the focus should be, in my opinion.
I love that. So where can people learn about you and this amazing franchise?
Yeah, well, so our company is called Tippie Toes, tippitoesdance.com, and it's TIPPI. That can sometimes throw people off. Tippie Toes Dance. So that is where you can learn about Tippie Toes. We've got these virtual classes right now, which is super cool with the pandemic because we can't be in class, but we've got really fun, kid-friendly, interactive dance classes that are available online. They're $20 a month, and anybody can do them, and you get this, you know, your library just grows over time. So that is, you can find all that information from Tippie Toes. I am Megan L. Reilly all over Instagram, you know, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever. I try to keep the same name. And yeah, so I've got a podcast coming out this summer. It's going to be on a new platform that actually Jesse Itzler is starting. And my podcast is called Who Is Your Mama? And I'm speaking with the parents of people who are amazing. So people like Jesse Itzler's mom, Kyler Murray's mom, people that have raised exceptional people and kind of reverse engineering, like, what was that like? How did you raise them? So that's coming out this summer on a new platform that I'm really excited about. So, awesome. You know, no, I'm out there. You can find me.
Yeah, you just keep making it happen.
Yes, just keep going. I don't know. Keep running towards something, right? It never ends.
Exactly. Awesome. Megan, thank you for your time today. And we'll be in touch.
Definitely. I appreciate it. This was so much fun. You were great to talk to. And I have to say, when I listened to you talk last time when I first met you, I was like, man, you held the room, your energy, like your ability to just keep the conversation so interesting. You've got so many great tips. So I appreciate the opportunity to get to meet you and listen to you talk, and your knowledge and wisdom and your experience together just is, it's really cool. So it's my pleasure to be here.
I'm happy to help. Thank you, though.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll be in touch, and thanks again. I'm going to cut this off, and I'll send it over to you so you have it too.
Okay. Sounds good. I appreciate it.
All right, Megan. Cool.
All right.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks.